Hi, I'm Ashton, and today I'm going to talk about how I've been on testosterone for 7 years now. It is more than 7 years as of making this video. I think it's like 7 years and a month and a handful of days. But, time doesn't really matter, and I've passed the 7-year mark, and that's what I'm talking about. And I know all the comments are gonna be, welcome back to YouTube or whatever. I'm not back on YouTube, I'm sorry. This is a one-off video. You're probably not going to get another video from me for at least another 3 months. It's not that I don't enjoy making YouTube videos anymore. It's just that I have 2.5 jobs and YouTube is not one of them, and I need to pay my bills. If you want more content from me, you can follow me on Instagram because I post art stuff there. But like YouTube is a big effort. Like to make one video, it takes me a lot of hours, and I simply do not have those hours in my life anymore. So, this is not a coming back to YouTube video. I had a little bit of extra time because it rained really bad and I work outside, so I got a couple days off, so I'm making a YouTube video. All that aside, the point of this video is to talk about being on testosterone for 7 years, what that's been like for me, give you all some advice that you asked for. So I put together a bunch of pictures from the past 7 years. I tried to get them all from the same month, the month that I started testosterone, which was March. And then I also solicited questions on Instagram. I got a lot of really, really great questions, and I'm going to answer, I think, almost all of them. So we'll get there eventually. It's going to take some time, but I'm going to start with the pictures. And for that, obviously, disclaimer, everything that I'm talking about is my personal experiences with testosterone. Not everyone is going to have the same experiences. I am very lucky and very privileged that I got to start testosterone when I did. I am not a medical doctor. I am not an endocrinologist. Nothing I say about testosterone is universal. This is all my experiences and what has happened to me and the things that I've learned from my trans circles as well. I also want to note that everyone who goes on hormones, everyone has a different timeline of events. Obviously, there are some things that are going to be similar between different people, but everyone gets different changes. There are a normal subset of changes that people experience, right? But not everyone is going to experience things at the same pace. You can't expect that your transition will be the exact same as mine. That's not how things work. People's bodies take things in differently. You might need a different dosage. You might need a different administration route than I do. Nothing is universal when it comes to hormones, and I just want to emphasize that before I get into talking about what has all happened to me. But I think that's the bulk of my disclaimery language, so I pulled up some photos. I have a little album that I'm going to go through and talk about some of the changes that I experienced and what that looked like for me. So I'm going to scoot over to the side so that I can put up pictures here, and I'm just going to kind of run through those and talk about why I picked the pictures that I did, and then I'm going to get to all of your questions. The last time I did a hormone update, at least according to my own playlist, was 3 years. I haven't been the most consistent person in the world posting hormone updates. It's not really I don't know, I enjoy doing it, but I prefer making videos that are creative, in-depth, political, etc. But I do think that talking about testosterone and hormones in general, hormone replacement therapy, etc., is a really cool thing that trans people can do in terms of collective knowledge building and the ability to see what your future can be like. And other people's hormone journey videos were really, really important to me when I was researching and thinking about starting hormones. And I know that that is still a resource that people use. It's not necessarily that I feel duty bound to do it or whatever, but it feels like a fun full circle moment for me because I watched so many people's hormone journeys. Anyway, before I get into the photos and such, I want to talk about my voice. Obviously, my voice is deeper than it was when I started T. That is because of both testosterone and also I'm just an older person now. I was 16 when I started. Even 16-year-old cis men don't really have deep voices. I do not have any clips that I can find of my voice pre-T, which is unfortunate. But I do have this video on my channel still. If you want to go watch it, feel free. But this was my 3 months on T video, and you can hear a little bit of depth in my voice, but you can definitely hear a difference from then to now. So that's what I'm going to play. This is what my voice sounded like 3 months on T.
This Thursday, today, I am 3 months on testosterone, and I know
for a bit of an additional comparison, this is what I sounded like a year on testosterone. The day that I'm filming this is March 3rd, so exactly 1 year ago, today I started testosterone. And now this is what my voice sounds like 7 years on testosterone. I feel like it hasn't changed too much since the first year mark. Like most of my voice changing really did happen in the first 12 months, which is relatively normal. Some people it takes a couple years, some people it's faster. I've talked about my voice plenty before online, and I don't want to belabor the point too much, but I really do like my voice where it is right now. It feels very happy medium, kind of androgynous, a little bit masculine with obviously some kind of gay feminine traits. And I like it. I like where my voice is. I have been harassed over my voice many, many times, thanks to my experiences with a certain subsect of the transmedicalist internet. But I really like my voice. Those folks have not changed anything for me. I really like where it is right now. Very happy with what testosterone has done for me in that regard. And yeah, that's my voice. Okay, onto my photo timeline. I pulled some photos from March of every year. I started T on March 3rd of 2017, and I just wanted to show these to kind of compare what I've looked like through the years in every March. So, this is what I looked like on March 2nd, 2017. I'm wearing glitter on my face, so nothing has changed. I still have that shirt. I still wear that shirt despite it having a typo in it. And I really, really miss that Bat Chew toy necklace. Stimtastic, which is where I got it from, has closed down, and I'm so sad about it, and I'll never get over it, I don't think. But yeah, you can see this is the day before I started T. I don't have any facial hair. My face shape is a little bit different then than it is now, and you'll see that change over the years too. I don't have that much acne in this picture, but I did have acne before I started T. I was a teenager having puberty, like regardless of whether that's a testosterone-based or estrogen-based puberty, a lot of teenagers get acne. But yeah, that's what I looked like right before I started testosterone, before I even started making YouTube videos. This is a year later, March 18th, 2018. So I was 17 in this picture. I'm wearing the same choker that I'm wearing now. I made it and it still fits my neck. I'm wearing spiral earrings that are much smaller than the gauge that my first holes are at now. I don't have any facial piercings yet in any of these either, which is funny to look at. I chose this picture specifically because I'm not wearing a shirt in it, and you can see how smooth my chest and shoulders are. My skin texture was a lot softer before I started testosterone, and a year in, it was still softer. I feel like my skin changed at the like 2 or 3 year mark, and you'll see that too. My skin is relatively clear in this picture too. I don't think I had much acne in the first year, but I also started on a really low dose, especially because I was young. That's relatively normal when anyone starts testosterone, but especially when teenagers start testosterone, a lot of doctors will start you on a lower dose. I didn't mind it. I still got changes pretty quickly. At this point, I also didn't really have facial hair a year in, but that's, I think, everything that I wanted to point out for that picture, so moving on. I did within the first year start to get some body hair, so I'm going to show these two pictures to compare. Pre-T, I did not have any hair on my stomach. I had very little hair on my legs. I had no hair on my shoulders, back, or chest, none on my face. But this picture was taken a year and a half-ish on T, November 3rd, 2018. This is what my stomach looked like. And I wanted to compare that to the picture I took today, March 28th, 2024. This is what my stomach looked like. So I experienced twink death, and I love it. You can also see, I think, a very subtle difference in my waist and the way that I carry my weight between these two pictures, but that's neither here nor there. That is also something that testosterone has done. It's redistributed my weight a tiny little bit, but honestly not that much. These pictures are not for March, but I wanted to put them in because they are when I shaved my head, and that was a like fun gender moment for me. I still say that I think everyone should shave their head at some point in their life. It was very liberating. I had a good time doing it, and I've had a good time growing my hair out after that too. So both of these pictures are from January 2019, and I also wanted to put them in because they show my hairline at age 18. And I don't think my hairline has changed that much, to be honest. Maybe it's moved back a little bit, and I'll talk a bit more about hair and testosterone later on because there's a couple questions about it. But as a whole, I have not experienced that much hairline change or hair loss, which I'm grateful for. So both of these pictures are about a year and a half on T, and I also chose them to show the skin texture change. My skin obviously looks a lot worse in these pictures than they did at a year in and before. It's normal to get acne on testosterone, and I'm going to talk about it more when I get to the questions, but yeah, I wanted to point that out. It is so normal to have acne at any point of your life. Acne is a normal thing, and it's fine, and you're going to be okay. And here's a picture from the next March. So this is March 6th, 2019. I was 18. My hair was starting to grow out. You can see my acne a little bit as well. I definitely look older in this picture than I did in the previous ones, but there's nothing like super notable, I think, about this one. Unless you think differently, let me know. The next picture is March 2nd, 2020. So I was 19. This was my first year of college. What a wild time in everyone's lives March 2020 was. Am I right, folks? This is when my skin started improving. So I had kind of a back and forth on testosterone where my skin got worse and then it got better. And it got worse, and then I got better. And so far, it seems like it's evening out, and I'm like mostly better, and my acne doesn't bother me as much as it used to. I also have this picture from March of 2020 to show my facial hair, because you can't really see it from far away, but 2020 and like somewhat 2019 was when my facial hair started to actually come in, and that was 3 and 4 years on T. So it did take a while, and I'm going to talk about it more in some of the questions, but it was not one of the earlier changes. But yeah, this picture kind of lets you see where my facial hair first started growing. So under my jaw and like under my chin, as opposed to like on my actual face. That came after, unfortunately, which happens for a lot of people, not just on testosterone, but like cis men too. That's pretty normal for your facial hair to come in unevenly. Now we are into 2021. So these are both pictures from March 20th, 2021. I put both of them in so that you could see both my face and my body. I am wearing makeup in these, but this is when my hair started coming in on my face. My face also, again, looks different than it did the previous year, I think. Also, sometime between the past March and March 2021, I started shaving my eyebrows shorter. I like how they look better that way. I've never gone back, and I don't know if I ever will. I have this picture from March 1st, 2022. You can see my facial hair again, as well as the way that my jaw has changed since those beginning photos. And I also have this picture from March 3rd, 2022, where again, you can see a lot better in this one how my facial hair looks and how much it changed since 2021. Here's a picture from January 2023. I don't have a lot of good pictures from March 2023, because in most of them I was wearing a mask, and I like masked selfies. I post masked selfies, but for this purpose, it's not very helpful to see my beard, which is one of the main things that you can see changing in these pictures. So I thought that wouldn't work very well. So this is from January 2023, and I just really like how my facial hair looks in this picture. Finally, we have one from February 2024. So this was late February, almost March. And I picked this one because you can see my chest hair in it. You haven't seen my chest hair in any of the previous pictures, but you saw my chest in one of the first pictures, and you can definitely see a difference. I don't mind having chest hair at all. It's kind of heart-shaped. You can't super tell in this photo, you can kind of tell, but it's kind of heart-shaped like this, and I really like it. Makes me feel very pretty, even though it's not something that I expected to like. So those are all the pictures that I pulled out for my timeline type thing. And now I'm going to get into your questions. I reordered these. They're not in the order that they came in, because a lot of people asked similar things. I'm starting out with questions about my like personal experience, and then at the end I have more advice-based questions, and I'll put a timestamp there for the description, the chapters thing, and you'll be able to skip to that if you don't really care about my own experiences. I am doing the questions anonymously just because that's kind of how the Instagram message box works, and I don't want to put anyone on blast that doesn't want to be on blast. So, but this might take a while, so let's get into it. Has your hair changed at all on T or impacted the way that you style it? Yes and no. My hair has changed many, many times on T, but only because I've changed it. I've bleached my hair, I've dyed my hair, I've cut my hair. I've been cutting my own hair for like 5 years now, so I haven't been to an actual hairstylist in a while. I do know multiple people who've had their hair texture change on testosterone. Some people get curlier hair on T, and I really wanted that to happen to me, but it didn't. My hair is a little bit naturally wavy. You can kind of see it in these pictures, but it only happens like seemingly randomly, and I don't really know what to do about it. In a related question, did you notice a change in your scalp? I'm almost a year on T, and I've had problems with excess oily scalp along with just being more oily in general. That can definitely happen. Testosterone can increase your oil production for sure. I had more of like an oily skin and face thing than an oily scalp thing. I don't wash my hair super often, like a couple times a week maybe. And I think that's helped, honestly, with my hair being oily because I'm not putting as much shit in it. I also do bleach my hair on occasion, which does not make it oily, kind of dries it out. So unfortunately, I do not have advice for excess oily scalp. I would say maybe talk to a dermatologist or just your general doctor. They might know something. I am sure that there are other people on T who have had that same experience, but I have not. Did your confidence change after being on T? Yes, absolutely. I'm a lot more confident now that I'm on testosterone. And I think that's a combination of factors, not just because I'm on T. I think my confidence has also grown with like figuring out who I am as a person and learning that I'm autistic and breaking down what that means about myself. So there's a lot that has impacted how confident I am. But testosterone has definitely been a major factor. It's been very, very helpful in terms of like self-esteem in general. And so have piercings and tattoos. That has been a big change in my life since before I started T, that I barely had any. For me, piercings and tattoos are definitely something that is gender affirming. So there's that as well. We have a couple hair-related questions. Have you had any issues with hair loss? Do you use finasteride or minoxidil? And experience with hair loss if applicable. I've not had experience with hair loss. My family hair loss genes are really lucky. My grandpa had cancer multiple times and somehow still had a full head of hair. So I'm pretty lucky on that front, and I hope I won't be losing my hair anytime soon. But it could happen, and I'm not like opposed to it. I'll figure it out. I'll use something if I want to, or I'll let it fall out if I want to do that. I did, for a period of maybe a month, use minoxidil on my face. That was maybe 2 years ago, and I don't know whether it actually helped or if it was just being on testosterone forever that helped. That said, hair loss is definitely something that people do experience, and it's not the end of the world. I think a lot of people assume that it will be, but there are options. You don't have to just go bald. You can change that route, or you can go bald. It's okay to be bald. It can be hot to be bald. Like, it's not the end of the world. You're gonna be okay. If the possibility of losing hair is all that is holding you back from starting T, I would say you should start T, because it may not happen to you. And if it does happen to you, it may not happen for like 5, 7, 10 years, whatever. You can always go off of testosterone. You can always explore other options. There's always wigs. Like, you will be okay if you lose your hair. I know it can be hard to imagine, but you'll be all right. Now I've got all the facial hair questions. How long did it take you to notice terminal facial hair? How long did facial hair take to come in? How long did facial hair take, etc.? I did already show pictures, so I'm not going to show pictures again, but I would say it started coming in at like 4 years, and it's still getting better. I'm still like experiencing more facial hair even within the past year. I've gotten more facial hair. I just shaved today, so like this is what I look like right when I've just shaved. I will also say that that's something I feel like that was definitely impacted by how young I was when I started T, because some people do get like a lot of facial hair within their first few years, but I was 17, right? And most 17-year-old cis men don't even have full beards. So it does not surprise me that it took me 7 years to get to where I am. I'm still only 23. Like, there are a lot of 23-year-old cis men that don't grow facial hair. I have a couple questions asking, was there a point where I stopped noticing new changes? Or are you finding things still changing? Or do things kind of plateau after a couple of years? And I feel like I've kind of covered this with some other things. Definitely some things have like stopped. I don't think my like weight distribution has changed that much since like 5 years. I talked about how like my acne and skin texture kind of got worse, better, hopefully staying at the better point. So things do change like throughout your life, right? But that's not just being on T, that's also just like getting older. Like, I might gain weight, I might lose weight, I might get more muscular, I might get less muscular, I could lose hair still. There's so many things that my body could change, and that could be testosterone, it could be just existing as in a human body. I feel like my chest and stomach hair hasn't changed too much in the past year or so, and same with my leg hair. That hasn't changed much in the past 3 to 5 maybe years, because my leg hair came in before the rest of my body hair did. Next question is how often to get test checkups once you've been taking it for years. This is a good question, especially if you're doing testosterone self-managed. It's still important to get like your hormone levels checked and a lot of other things in your blood checked that you should definitely do research on if you are not being managed by an endocrinologist or a doctor. I personally get my blood checked yearly now. At first, it was every 3 months, I think. Then it went down to 6 months, and now I'm at a year. Generally, from what I understand, the longer that you are on a hormone like testosterone, and the more test points you have of your hormone levels being in the range that you want them to be in, the more that you can trust they will be in that range if you just keep doing what you've been doing. So I'm on like a maintenance dose right now of 60 milligrams a week, injected subcutaneously for those that care, and I'll talk more about that in a bit as well. Any side effects you've noticed from taking it long term, anything to watch out for health-wise, any joint issues. These are 3 different questions. Side effects I've noticed from taking it long term, none personally. Testosterone does change the health risk factors you have in life, similarly to how a cis man's would be. One thing that you will hear some people talk about is that testosterone use can increase your cardiovascular risk, which is true, but you shouldn't, not that you shouldn't be concerned about that. Like, you should be, especially if you have a risk in your family. It's something that you should consider and something you should talk about with your doctor. But it's important to remember that that risk still changes based on your lifestyle factors and your family factors and a plethora of other things. And having talked to my doctor and done all of the types of blood tests that I've done, it's not something that I need to be concerned about right now. Obviously, I'll still go to the doctor for the rest of my life, and maybe it will be in 10 years, but not right now. I'm not sure why this person asked about joint issues, because as far as I know, testosterone doesn't really impact joint issues, and the joint issues that I have are from my HEDS, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, not due to testosterone. There is a lot of fear-mongering around the effects of testosterone and what it can do to a woman's body, but cross-sex hormones have been used for a really, really long time. Hormone replacement therapy is something that is effective and safe, and especially when it is something that is monitored by a healthcare team, you're probably not going to have that many problems, and problems that you do have are most likely manageable. Yeah, watch out, obviously, for stuff that you might already be at a higher risk for, but testosterone is just going to turn your hormone system into one that is more similar to a cis man's than a cis woman's, and there are health impacts that can be related to, but you don't need to be as concerned as TERFs may have you believe. Things I wish I'd known going into T. I'm supposed to start T later this year. Personally, I feel like I knew everything that I needed to know, but I also did so much research, so much research. And I guess that would be my main piece of advice. If you're watching this video, you're already doing a good start, right? Look at what you can, read what you can, watch what you can, at least if you're the type of person that likes to do that. Some people find it anxiety-inducing perhaps, but I find it very helpful to know what I'm getting into, and testosterone is one of those things where the more you know about it, the more prepared you're going to be for it. And I found knowing as much as I did very helpful, because I was not surprised about anything. I pretty much knew what was going to happen to me. That's maybe not the most interesting answer, but really nothing surprised me. There was nothing that I was like, oh, I wish I'd known this would change, because I did so much research. And I think that's probably the best path for most people. If you're going to do a big body change, like taking hormones, maybe research it a little first. I don't know. Is that groundbreaking advice? I hope not. If possible, could you cover your experience with insurance and pharmacy stuff? Sure. Actually, fortunately for me, it's not that interesting. I have gotten testosterone from many different pharmacies and I've never had a problem with it. I know you can in some states. I do typically have to show my ID when I get it. And I am still on my parents' insurance, which is relatively good insurance, and it covers most of my testosterone bill. I do still pay a little bit for it, but it's not bad. It is definitely a good thing to look at before you start testosterone if your insurance will cover it, because if it doesn't, that can be a problem. And sometimes there are workarounds available. Sometimes you have to put in a confirmation that they will cover it thing. I had to do that for my hysterectomy, and it was a pain in the ass. So there may be ways to get around it. You should talk to your doctor and your pharmacist if you can about it. I did not have a problem because I am lucky. Many people will have problems with getting their testosterone covered on their insurance, and it can range from completely covered to not at all covered. So, it's a thing that is different for everyone. I was very lucky regarding it, and most people that I know have been lucky with their insurance covering it. It is more common for insurance to cover it, as far as I'm aware, than not cover it, depending on the insurance that you're on. I hope that's helpful. How do you keep up with your T-shots when you have ADHD? I'm always forgetting my shot date and stuff. I wish I could help you on this one. I don't know whether or not I have ADHD. I know I'm autistic, but I haven't looked into ADHD as much because most of my experiences have been explained very well by being autistic. But I may have ADHD. It's pretty common to have both. Regardless, I too forget my shot date very frequently. It helps me to keep it on a calendar, and it helps me to have it be a reminder. If I look at my calendar a lot because I work 2 jobs. So I see constantly T-shot at the top of the day. So I see it and I'm reminded of it pretty consistently. That said, I do my shots 8 days apart pretty much all the time, because pretty much all the time I'm like, oh, it's shot day, and I don't do my shot. And the next day I'm like, damn, I need to do my shot. So I forget it a lot too, and it's okay. It's all right to forget it. You're not going to die if you take your shot a couple days late. I will say it can also help to have someone else to help you remember. Maybe you have a friend that also does your shot on the same day. Maybe you have a friend that like wants to support your transition and will help remind you on the day that your shot is due. But yeah, it's rough when you forget your shot day. I've been there. I'm there all the time. Question in a similar vein, did taking tea affect how your autism shows itself at all? I recently started tea and it influences my ADHD, so I thought maybe that's possible with autism too. The way that autism impacts my life has changed in the past 7 years. However, I also discovered I am autistic within the past 7 years. Like maybe a year into being on tea is when I realized I'm autistic. And I've only really unpacked being autistic in the past 3 years. So it's definitely changed, and the way that it presents in me has changed. But I can't really pin that on testosterone as much as I can pin it on figuring out that I'm autistic, you know? Does crying become harder? What are your experiences with emotionality with tea? And how much of a personality change does tea bring? Short temper, harder to cry, etc. I wanted to pair these two together because they both asked about crying, and that is the main thing that has changed for me in terms of emotionality. I cry a lot less on testosterone than I did before. It's hard to say whether crying less is just testosterone or also because I'm generally happier, but I think it's both. I have cried once in the past like 6 months. Every time I cry, it's like an event, and I get excited about it now. That said, I don't think my emotions themselves have changed that much. I think the way that my body processes my emotions has changed. The way that emotions like externalize themselves has changed because I can't cry as easily, but that's the only part of it that's changed. I still feel things strongly. I still can feel sad. I still can feel angry. I can still feel happy in the same ways. It's just how I express that is different because of testosterone. I don't think my temper has changed at all. I'm generally a very patient person. I work with kids. I have to be. I don't feel like I'm generally an irritable or angry person, and that's not something that's changed on tea for me. It does for some people. It hasn't for me. So it is harder to cry, but it doesn't bother me too much. I almost wish I could cry more, but it's something that doesn't really impact me that much in the day-to-day. And if anything, it makes the times that I do cry more meaningful because I'm like, wow, this must have really struck something in me. So yeah, I hope that helps. How gender expression can change and fluctuate over time? ? Great question. I love talking about gender expression. I have so much to say about gender expression, and I've talked about it many times before, but I think the main thing is that being on testosterone has made me more comfortable with expressing femininity in a variety of ways, right? I shaved my head in 2019, obviously, as you saw, but I've grown out my hair since then, and having longer hair is not something that I ever thought I would be comfortable with again when I first started tea. I had longer hair as a kid, chopped it off when I came out like 10 years ago. I've also been more comfortable playing with makeup now that I'm on testosterone and now that I am more outwardly typically masculine, right? My gender identity itself has changed a tiny little bit since I came out, but not really since I started testosterone. I've been pretty solidly like non-binary man the entire time. I add words to my little gender descriptor hoard all the time, but they all kind of describe the same internal feeling. But my gender expression changes all the time. Usually when I'm at work, I don't present very much at all. Like I'm very default, if that makes sense. I call it my butch sona sometimes. I pull my hair back. I don't wear any makeup. I wouldn't wear a shirt like this to work. I wear exercise shirts, right? And I wear leggings, pretty much, like jodhpurs or breeches, if you know what those are, sometimes jeans and boots. So I don't wear makeup to work. It would be very impractical for me to wear makeup to work. But outside of my work life, which is a lot of my life right now, I do like to wear makeup, and I do like to present in a more androgyn, feminine way. And that's not something that I could have done before being on tea, just because it would have made me feel more out of line with being at home in my body. Whereas now, with the changes that testosterone has brought me, I am more comfortable feeling more feminine and looking more feminine, if that makes sense. Bottom growth later on, it stopped after the first month. that's pretty normal. I think my bottom growth maybe lasted like the first year or so on tea. I don't really remember. I have seen many people have like growth spurts almost when they go up in dosage, so that could help. I believe localized DHT cream is also an option, as well as pumping. So you can look into both of those if more bottom growth is something that you are looking for. I have 3 more. What was the most unexpected change? Were there any effects you initially didn't expect? And I kind of already mentioned this, but no, I read a lot before I started tea, and I feel like that was the best thing I could have done for myself. I knew I was going to get sweatier. I knew I was going to get hairier. I knew I might get stronger. I knew I might lose my hair. I knew I would probably grow a beard or more leg hair, more armpit hair, more arm hair, more torso hair, everything. Like I was very keyed into what might change. And personally, that was the best way for me to go about it. I am glad that I did all the research that I did beforehand. The only thing I will say is that there is an effect of testosterone that has only very recently been discovered and like officially published. And that is that testosterone can make you grow prostate tissue, which can obviously change the way that certain types of penetration feels. I did not initially expect that, because 7 years ago, that information was not available. Nobody knew that 7 years ago, but there have been studies more recently that have shown that. And I think that is very cool. So if you didn't know that, now you do. Any hopes for your continued years on tea? I hope that my hair won't fall out. If it does, that's cool. I'll roll with it. But it would be nice if it did. I would like for my beard to get a little bit less patchy. I enjoy having like stubble like it is right now and a little bit longer. But I do have like some patches where it hasn't grown in yet, and maybe they will someday. That would be nice. And I hope I don't get a lot of back hair. It'd be fine if I got some back hair, but like I don't want a back full of hair just because it would be warm and annoying and again, inconvenient. So yeah, those are my hopes. What forms of tea have you been on? Have you ever switched route of administration? And if so, what were your thoughts on them? I have always been on injections. Other options include patches, I believe like a dissolvable pellet that you get like every 3 months or something, and gel. I have not been on any of those. I've always been on injections. I have changed from intramuscular injections to subcutaneous injections. I much prefer subcutaneous injections. They're easier for me and less painful for me. Most people that I know that have been on both prefer subcutaneous injections. Anyway, to more specifically answer the question, I have always been on depot testosterone injections. I started with intramuscular injections and then I switched to subcutaneous injections, and I have an entire video on the differences between the two. Don't know how good it is because it's kind of old, but it does exist. All right, these are 2 questions from a pal of mine. How your sexuality has changed over time and the way you conceptualize it. I'll start with that. I called myself pansexual when I started tea. I started calling myself bisexual maybe 3 or 4 years into taking tea. I just prefer the word bisexual. I like its historicity. And I do have an entire video like coming out as bisexual where I talk a bit more about my preference for the word. If you want to watch that, again, it's old. But the main difference is that I am very, very much tea for tea now, which I was not at the beginning of my transition. I think if I had lived my life without going on tea, I would probably still have ended up tea for tea, but being on tea kind of accelerated that for me. At this point in my life, I cannot see myself with someone who is not trans. And that doesn't necessarily mean someone who has medically transitioned. It's more of a way of viewing gender and a deeper understanding of how gender functions in the world and in our bodies and in our minds that I just have never seen a cis person fully grasp. And again, you can watch my Tea for Tea video for more thoughts about that. But yeah, I have become Tea for Tea as I have transitioned, and that has been an interesting and very fulfilling experience for me. And an additional question, how your approach to intimacy has changed. Very few trans masc I know speak upon, but I personally have UTI problems associated with intimacy, so that has been troublesome with HRT and atrophy. Yeah, a lot of trans men and people on testosterone. I have not had UTI problems. I have had some dryness problems. My best advice to literally every single person on testosterone is to use lube. It doesn't matter what kind of intimacy you're doing. Well, if you're like cuddling, don't use lube. But, you know, sexual intimacy, you want to use lube. Lube is your friend. Lube will not hurt you unless you get sketchy lube. Don't get like lube on Amazon, probably. Do your research. Like, don't get silicone lube if you have silicone toys, etc., etc., etc. Don't put shit in your body that you shouldn't put in your body. But lube is your friend. Use lube. That's my best piece of advice, truly. I feel like talking about being T for T definitely translates into how my approaches to intimacy has changed. I much prefer being intimate with trans people. Being on T has very much helped me feel more comfort with my own body, and it is hard to imagine a cis person being able to accept and love my body in a way that I know trans people can. I would also encourage folks on T to try different forms of intimacy than you may have grown up learning about. Gay sex is great, guys. Like, moving on, did it make your eyebrows get bushier? Yes, but only very slightly. I do grow hair a little bit between my eyebrows now, which I didn't before T. And I feel like my eyebrows maybe got a little bit bushier. You tell me. But I also shave them off now. So, like, I only have half of an eyebrow, and it doesn't bother me too much that they're bushier because half of it's gone anyway. So, do you think you would be happy if you didn't have the opportunity or resources to take T? Hard-hitting questions you guys are asking. Honestly, I think I would have a lot more dysphoria. In many ways, I think transitioning has saved my life. I do not know if I would still be alive if I had not been privileged enough to start testosterone. And that's the truth. If I didn't have the resources that I currently do to take, like, testosterone with a medical doctor with, like, medical oversight, I would probably DIY it, to be honest. Like, I've thought about that a lot, and it is probably the path I would go down if I didn't have a more legitimate route of access. I think I could manage if I had never been able to take it, but I do think I would be in a very, very different place, emotionally, physically, mentally, and that place would not be as good of a place as I am in now. Again, I am very, very lucky to have started T when I did, and I wish that everyone had the opportunity that I did. I wish that everyone had access to trans-affirming care. And I live in North Carolina, so, like, I don't even have the best resources that exist, but I don't have the worst resources that exist. So, I don't know. I wish this didn't have to be a thing. You know, I wish every trans person could have access to gender-affirming care just at the drop of a hat. If I could change that, I absolutely would. But unfortunately, it is something that a lot of us do have to consider and do have to fight for. Have you experienced any health problems caused by T? I'm nearly 5 years now, and although I get checkups and stuff, the media has scared me. I talked about this a little with the previous question, but for sure there's a lot of media that will tell you that being on T will kill you. It won't kill you. Assuming that you get your blood tested and you are conscious about the changes that are happening in your body, you are going to be okay. Obviously, there are outliers in every case. I had a top surgery complication. I know that medicine can be scary, but testosterone for me has been a very affirming experience. It's been a very safe experience. I have not had any medical problems caused by testosterone. I have medical problems. They are not caused by testosterone. I have a couple questions about any times you'd stopped and started or considered stopping T, and did you spend any time going on and off T? What was it like if so? I did not. I've been on testosterone for 7 years straight. I did skip a couple weeks when I got top surgery because a lot of the times they want you to stop any medications that you're on surrounding a surgery, which makes sense. But yeah, I have never been off of T since I started, and I've never really considered being off of T since I started. I've really liked everything. It hasn't impacted me negatively in any super noticeable ways, and it's not something that I necessarily want to stop anytime soon. Which goes into the next question, will you be staying on it for the foreseeable future? Yeah, I don't see why not. I enjoy the way that I feel with my hormone system, the way that it is, even though I have to regulate it. I enjoy it. I feel good. I feel like myself, and I could see myself stopping. I got a hysterectomy. I have a video about that as well. And one of the reasons that I did is because I wanted to be able to potentially stop T without having my period come back. And I kept my ovaries, so I still have like the hormones in there that would be necessary if I went off of T, if that makes sense. And then a similar question, do I have any next steps in my transition? Kind of. I do want to get my missing nipple tattooed. If you didn't know, I only have one nipple. Super fun fact. I do want to get that tattooed on, but that's something that A, costs money, and B, requires a very specific type of tattoo artist that I've not been able to find near me. So that's up in the air, but that'll happen someday. And then I also want more tattoos and piercings, which for me is gender affirming care. Do you feel like you look like how your younger pre-T self envisioned you would look? Yes and no. I love this question. I think it's so fun. I have always wanted to be able to grow facial hair, even though I don't want to grow a beard. I like the option of having stubble. It makes it a lot easier to pass, even when I'm wearing a mask, because you can still see that part of my face, right? I really like how my face has filled out. I feel like I look more masculine than I did before I started, which is also because I'm 7 years older, right? But I don't think I really ever envisioned myself with as much body hair as I have, but it's not something that I dislike. It's something that I've kind of embraced, but I have very much definitely always wanted to kind of look like a gender non-conforming androgynous weirdo guy. So in that regard, I definitely look how I would have liked to. And I frequently think that if my 15-year-old self saw me now, I would be like, yes, awesome, good job. So really that's all you can ask for, right? Have you had issues with your organs? I know there's this idea your uterus and ovaries can die, and I don't know if it's real. That's not real, no. Your uterus and ovaries are not going to die because your endocrine system is changing. They may change. You will stop getting a period, most likely. You may experience different cycles of cramping than you previously did, especially if you cramped on your period. I cramped a lot on my period, and until I got my uterus removed, my cramping did not stop. I still got relatively regular weird cramps. So that's a fun thing that your uterus can still do. My uterus personally did die, but that's because I killed it, not because I'm on testosterone. There also were concerns for a while about incidence of cervical and otherwise uterine cancers with testosterone use, but from what I've read, that is not really a correlation that exists. Were there any unexpected social changes that you experienced? Yes and no. Definitely I knew that I would be treated differently if/when I passed as a man. However, a lot of the times I do not pass as a man. If I wear a mask, I don't always pass, especially if you can't really see my facial hair. Sometimes I do. It's really like a crapshoot. It is weird how other men treat me better now, now that I am not always perceived as a woman. When I'm not perceived as a woman, I tend to be treated better by men. Shocking. Not something that I was surprised about. I do think that if you're not expecting to be treated differently, you will be surprised, because you absolutely will be treated differently. Men are given so much more benefit of the doubt and so much more credence and generally treated as if they are smarter. I am interrupted less. I am generally treated like I know more, even when I don't know more than the woman around me. And that can be unsettling. It can be really frustrating, because I know it is a manifestation of misogyny, but it is definitely something that I've experienced. Okay, we are on to the last few questions, and these ones are all advice related. So I'm done talking about my personal changes with testosterone, and now I'm going to talk about your potential experiences with testosterone. Tips/advice for getting on testosterone. Do your research first. I've already talked about that a lot, but know what you are getting into. I'm sure there are some people who that would provoke anxiety in, but I really think it's a good idea to know what will happen to your body before it does happen. Even if you're anxious about it, you don't want to jump into something that you don't know what it's going to do. That seems to me like a bad idea. And if you are anxious about reading medical stuff, maybe have someone talk to you about it, or watch more informal videos like these ones that are not super medical, where people are open about what they've experienced, because those exist everywhere. I would also say you should kind of get local about your research if you can. If you can find a trans, non-binary, etc. support group or LGBT center in your area, Talking to local people about who they go to and where they go can be really, really helpful. For example, a lot of people will recommend Planned Parenthoods, which in some locations can be really good for gender affirming care, and some locations can be really not great for gender affirming care. It depends on where you are. And if you talk to other trans people that are already on hormones or have had experiences with multiple doctors, that can be really, really helpful. I have given so many of my local friends like doctor advice and recommendations, and that can be a really, really invaluable experience. I honestly think that might be my hottest tip, is that you should talk to local trans people. Find and talk to local trans people that have transitioned to know where you should go, because there are going to be places that will offer stuff to you that will not follow through. There will be places that you'll only be able to get prescribed hormones if you check every little box of like, you're a perfect transsexual and you have always wanted this and you are not feminine in any way, or vice versa, not masculine in any way. And if that's your only option, I think it is perfectly ethical to lie to your doctors to get what you want. But that's a controversial take, and maybe I shouldn't promote that. Find local people that have transitioned. That's truly the best advice I can give you. What would you say to someone considering T, but with a lot of medical anxiety? It might be rough for you. Truly, genuinely, it may be rough. But if it is something that you want, you're going to have to push through it. I would say you might want to talk to a therapist in addition to whatever doctors you have about anxiety management. There are pills that can help you. There are breathing exercises. There are so many coping skills for anxiety that you can utilize, whether or not it is for medical anxiety or other types of anxiety. I've dealt with a lot of anxiety in my life, and therapy has been helpful, truly and genuinely. I would also say that you should tell your doctor about it. If you have a doctor that you feel you can be open with about it, it would be good to mention that you are anxious about it. They can explain the process to you. They can make sure that they are super clear about everything that they are doing or everything that they are like planning to do, right? Also, a lot of doctors will let you bring a friend. Like, you don't have to go to the doctor alone. I bring my partner when I go to the doctor oftentimes, and he's been great, and that's been super helpful for me. Also, if needles are a part of your medical anxiety, there are other options. Like I mentioned, you can do gel, you can do patches, you can look into the injectable pill dissolve-y thing that I don't know much about, but needles are not your only option, and do not be tricked into thinking that they are. Tips for dealing with shot anxiety. Similar advice, look into other options. If you are really, truly, like, really, really anxious about doing shots, you don't have to do shots. There are other ways that you can transition. It's not just hormone shots. It can also be helpful to have someone to do your shots with. I have done many another people's shot in my life. I do my partner's shots to this day. My other piece of advice, if you really want to do shots and you don't want to do gel or you don't want to do patches or whatever, get one of these. This is an Inject Ease. My partner and I both use this. It does the injection part for you. It has a button. You put your syringe with your needle in it, you put it against your skin, with like the needle's not touching your skin, you click a button and the needle goes into your skin. Super duper helpful, especially for people whose nerves come with that moment of injection, which is really, really common. I didn't know about these until my partner showed it to me, but I'm pretty sure you don't need like a prescription or anything for it. You can just get one. And this is what it looks like. The needle and syringe go in there, right? The syringe head comes up here, so once it's injected, you can push it in the same way. You put the syringe in here, you push this over the edge of the syringe, then you click this button, and it injects you. So you don't have to do like the stabby part. This is great. I'd recommend this 100%. They are not made to do hormone shots with. I'm pretty sure they're meant for insulin, but I have not had any problems with it. My hormone levels have stayed the same. It's not impacted that. I'm non-binary and I'm in doubts on going on T. I'd like to be a bit more masculine, but not too masculine. And I'm already pretty androgynous and I want top surgery. What should I ponder before I decide yes or no? This is like a personal and complicated one, obviously, right? But my genuine advice, even if it seems a bit harsh, is to think less about masculinity and femininity and think more about what you want for your own body. Think about the effects that testosterone gives, right? You can lose your hair, you can grow body hair, you can grow facial hair, your voice will get deeper, you'll get bottom growth probably, you might get hornier, you'll probably get sweatier, you might grow body hair in places you didn't expect, like your butt crack. Look at those lists, think about all of those changes that can happen, and think about whether or not you want them. You can also think about low dose T. You can think about starting T and stopping once your voice drops. That can mitigate hair loss. That can like stop in its tracks any body hair development. there are so many options in terms of non-binary transitioning, and thinking about it just as in like going on T as if that's an end-all be-all, it's not. There are a lot of options, and you can talk to your doctor, you can talk to other non-binary people about their thoughts. Transitions can be very personalized. It's not a one-size-fits-all scenario, and you don't have to go on T for 7 years. You can go on T for a month and see if you like it. A lot of things are reversible, and you should think about what's reversible and what's not reversible as well. But yeah, truly my advice is to not think too much about whether it'll make you masculine, and think more about what exactly it does and how you feel about those things. Okay, last question. What could you say to AMAB trans people on what can change in reverse? This is an interesting one. I don't really know. Kind of bookmarking what I said at the very beginning, transition is different for every single person. And just because I had these changes going one way doesn't mean you'll have the opposite changes going the other way. I don't think that's a very helpful way to think about it. I would recommend reading Whipping Girl. I feel like there is a lot of insights on transition in like a MTF way in that book. But generally, I would just give you the same advice that I have given throughout this whole video of like, do your research beforehand. Even if it makes you anxious, it is important to know what will change in your body when you take on something like hormones. Your skin can change, your genitals can change, your hair can change. So many different things that you may not even think about. And reading those lists, watching videos from people who've been on it, reading books, all of that can really help prepare you. And personally, hormones are not something that I would want to go into unprepared. I'm sure there's someone out there who would argue with that, but for me, that's my advice. And that was the final question that I got. So, we're all done. I have said everything that I am going to say for this video. If you have additional questions, I would be happy to discuss stuff in the comments. This has been a long video, and I am tired, so I'm gonna go have a drink and do some carving. I will see you either on Instagram or on YouTube in another like 3 to 6 months, who knows? Thank you for watching. I hope you learned everything that you hoped you would learn. And I will talk to you later, maybe.